How bad must things be for McLaren's own director Andrea Stella to publicly admit that Oscar Piastri cannot adapt to the car, just when they are fighting for the championship? Today I bring you a story of pressure, disappointment, and technical consequences that could cost McLaren the entire season. Are you ready to find out what is really going on inside the Papaya garage? The first free practice session at the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix began under the lights of Las Vegas with an atmosphere of expectation and tension. In it, Oscar Piastri closed with a time of 1 minute and 35.450 seconds, which placed him in 8th place, about 6/10 behind his teammate Lando Norris, who placed 6th. According to the official report from the McLaren team, that seemed a good start, but the trap was yet to come. McLaren. The implication is clear, that seemingly small margin masked a deep problem. In the following session, Piastri not only lost pace, but finished in 14th place after practice was interrupted by 2 red flags, one caused by a loose manhole cover which prevented him from completing a clean lap on soft tires. Reuters. Beyond the lap time, red lights came on in the garage because the internal comparison with Norris showed that it was not just a matter of the fastest lap. It was the feeling of driving, the adaptation to the car, and the reading of the circuit that was missing. On an urban track like Las Vegas, with very low downforce, very close walls, and asphalt temperatures that drop during the night, the margin of error is reduced to almost nothing. As Stella summed it up, this route requires intense work to find the correct reference points for the drivers. Today in FP2, light rain at the start and then red flags slowed our work. In particular, the information from the long runs that we normally collect is missing. For Piastri, what began as a reasonable session became a gateway to doubt. Failing to complete a competitive lap with the softest tire, in conditions that favored a clean track, became a warning for his team. The adaptation was not in place. And when the team already knew that this circuit was historically one of the most difficult for McLaren due to its urban park configuration, the long straights and the slow turns where the Papaya car has shown weakness, that signal took on even greater weight. In that atmosphere, the discovery that Piastri had no rhythm, or at least not the rhythm necessary to be in front in Vegas, was quiet but devastating. There were no screaming crises or explosive headlines at the time. Rather, it was a growing murmur in the telemetry data, in the feeling that the pilot had on the radio, and in the serious look of the engineers when they saw the delta with respect to Norris widen. From that moment on, the weekend stopped being an expected continuity and became a warning. If you want, I can provide you with telemetry graphs, detailed analysis of McLaren's tire behavior in Las Vegas, and excerpts from the technical team showing how Piastri lost key minutes to Norris there. The moment when Andrea Stella understood that the problem Oscar Piastri was facing was not just a purely driving problem came after reviewing the data from the practice weekend in Las Vegas. From the wall of the McLaren structure, the alarm went off. The car, the McLaren MCL39, or its sovereign technical generation for the season, had been calibrated according to the team's standard parameters, but Piastri's behavior exhibited anomalies that the engineers had not foreseen. It was not a visible electronic failure or a clear mechanical breakdown, but rather a disconnection between what the car's sensors were showing and what the driver felt behind the wheel. Stella was aware that this urban layout, with its reduced aerodynamic loads, long straights, close walls, and asphalt temperatures that drop after nightfall, had always been one of the most demanding for McLaren. But what had been a technical challenge in the past now became a driver-car compatibility problem. Piastri was unable to extract maximum performance when the car was sliding, when the transitions between curves and straights were abrupt, when the soft tires lost temperature. Internally, it was detected that while the team expected to see in its telemetry a constant progression of tire degradation and increased downforce, in reality Piastri's graphs showed peaks of instability, erratic variations in traction, and split times that expanded in the central sectors of the lap. From the technical room, Stella convened her group of performance, aerodynamics, and piloting engineers for an in-depth analysis. Was the steering wheel balanced correctly for Piastri? Was the suspension geometry setup optimized for your style? The conclusion was that the car was working within McLaren's normal range that weekend, which indicated that the problem was not purely technical but one of adaptation. Piastri required sensitivity to handle the car in those low-load conditions that until then he had had less difficulty with his teammate Lando Norris. Stella was then faced with a dilemma: invest resources in modifying the car to suit Piastri's style, or require the driver to continue adapting to the team's standard package. Both options had risks. Adapting the car meant diverting development that perhaps Norris would also use. Demanding the driver meant trusting in an improvement curve that, at this point in the season, could be too slow. Stella explained it crudely internally: When the car skids, when the tire's operating window is lost. You need a driver who controls it naturally, who feels it and corrects it without hesitation. But in those workouts, that fluidity didn't appear for Piastri. The Italian knew that the appearance of this weakness came at a critical moment. The team was already fighting for the Constructors' Championship and needed its two drivers to the maximum. If only one performed at the expected level, the shadow of failure loomed faster than ever. The subsequent conversations were not superficial. Stella brought Piastri and his engineers together to review curves, power maps, brake reactions and aerodynamic settings. The driver was receptive, but the evidence was harsh. The times showed that compared to Norris, Piastri had lost more than half a second per lap in low-load conditions, while engineers looked at graphs of lateral speed loss and longer-than-planned corner entries. In that scenario, Stella issued an implicit warning: "We need you to regain that fluidity. The car may be there, but we need you to master it under these circumstances." The tension increased because the margin of error was narrowing. If Piastri did not return to that level of adaptation, the team might have to reorder development priorities or make more radical decisions in terms of driving. It was at that moment when the technical dilemma stopped being just technical and became a test for the character of the driver, for the management of the team, and for the direction that McLaren would take in the final stretch of the season. If you want, I can expand even further by delving into the telemetry data that was leaked, the pending configuration adjustments, and what technical decisions Stella is already studying to correct this problem in the next races. The premise is clear. With only 3 Grand Prix left after Las Vegas, every lap, every tenth and every mistake takes on an amplified dimension. Piastri is 24 points behind his teammate Lando Norris, and the numbers do not favor him. Although he remains under a multi-year contract with McLaren, a signed extension that guarantees his permanence for the coming years, that contract is beginning to feel like a thin blanket in a cold wind. The contractual security is there, but the trust of the team and the environment is beginning to be tested. McLaren, for its part, faces an uncomfortable scenario. The team achieved a brilliant comeback in the season, but part of the merit was generating synergy between the driver, engineers, and technical front. When one of the two drivers begins to show cracks in that synergy, an uncomfortable question arises. Is the weakness temporary or structural? In the case of Piastri, McLaren has already detected that it is not simply adapting to a circuit or extracting a fast lap. It is the consistency under pressure, the ability to regain rhythm when conditions change, that is failing. Andrea Stella has reports on her desk that show how, in recent races, the driver's progression has been irregular, his data set less reliable, and his driving sensations less precise. So, the scenario to get to Abu Dhabi is not just physical or technical. It is mental, political, strategic. If Piastri regains his best form, the team can reach the last race of the year with still options, with both drivers in tension, with Norris leading and Piastri cutting back, and McLaren aiming for a double victory. But if the discomfort persists, the last race is already beginning to be perceived as the closing act of a chapter, the confirmation that a strong bet did not work, and that perhaps the team will have to make drastic decisions in the winter. Among the decisions that McLaren is exploring is the reorientation of development for 2026, calibrating the car to favor a more resistant driving style instead of the aggressive style that Norris favored so much this year, or even considering reconfiguring the team of driving engineers to support Piastri more directly. For Piastri, the tension has become palpable. It is not enough to maintain the pace, he must show that he can lead, that he can make up ground, that he can handle the car when everything seems to stop working. In the end, the last big question is, what does McLaren prefer? One driver who performs perfectly most of the time, or two who perform at the expected level in every circumstance? And Piastri knows that that question now points directly to him. If he arrives in Abu Dhabi without having rebuilt confidence, without having reversed the drop in results or at least shown a clear reaction, the team could begin to think that the best future, in the long term, is built without him as a second pillar or even as a main pillar under other conditions. This season for Oscar Piastri is far from just a final stretch. It is a defining moment that could forever change the course of his career and that of the McLaren F1 team. It's become clear that talent and victories can open doors, but what sets champions apart is how they respond when everything seems to get worse. Piastri has shown it before, but now he faces maximum pressure, adverse conditions, and a teammate Lando Norris who does not rest. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.